I wanted to ask you about this whole mix of data, creative, finding the right audience. How do you prioritize things when you organize a campaign?
Yeah, I mean, so we start with the person, right, the consumer in mind, and I think marketing really owns the consumer, and so it's really important to us as marketers to really focus on the right person before we do anything else. And so our planning process is 3 phases, and it really is this dimensionalizing the person first, to really looking at humanizing the business and the brand and understanding them from a multi-dimensional perspective. So not just what their demographics are or their gender, but really looking into their behaviors and their attitudes, and especially as it relates to consuming beer and what occasions that relates to. So it starts with that. And then you go to the right places. So as marketers, there are so many opportunities available to us today to find those avenues to reach consumers, but it's really important to kind of really review and understand the ones that are going to be most meaningful. And so we talk about that as the moments that matter. And so really focusing on what are the right moments that our message is going to resonate in a consumer's lives, that's going to break through, that is going to be something that they don't avoid as well, as we know. And then from there, once you have the right person and you have the right place and those moments that matter, then you go to the right message. And I think a lot of marketers today start with the creative brief and the idea and say, here's my message, go find me places to put that message at. And I think that is the backwards looking view that a lot of marketers do.
So let me ask you about the notion of one-to-one marketing. We've talked about addressable before, and what does that mean to you, and what is the value of one-to-one or addressable media per se? What does that mean, and what's the value to your brands?
I mean, the value for my brands and for most marketers, I believe, is just the ability to, one, eliminate waste, right? So one-to-one means that you're creating a message that is most relevant to a particular consumer that you've identified, and ensuring that that message is the most appropriate and at the right environment for them. So I think waste is a big part of one-to-one marketing. I think the other part is just understanding the funnel. And so I don't think there's a very linear funnel as it always been described in marketing textbooks. I actually think the funnel is much more complex than that. But one-to-one gives you the opportunity to really change your message depending on the environment and depending on where that consumer is in their purchase behavior or where they are in their route to purchase. And so we can change our messaging in that last mile or that last instance before they go into a C-store for a particular beer brand at the end of the day.
When you mean change, how do you mean?
Customize, right? So it means that we would need to really identify this environment or within a specific...
You mean like if they're living in Chicago or Miami or
potentially, and that plays a role. So looking at the geography is key, but I also would say it's just looking at the shopping behavior as well. And so, for example, in some markets, the convenience store is a primary destination at the end of the day for people to go in and buy a 24-ounce beer, as we call Shed the Day, occasion for beer. And so creating a message then that reflects that behavior in their route to purchase. And we know through a lot of our data that a lot of consumers don't really have in their minds before they walk into that convenience store what they're going to buy. All right? A lot of it's a very impulsive behavior. And so we can, as long as we're there at that moment, that we talk about the moments that matter, then that's the opportunity for us to create something customized. In other markets, and I'd say like whether it's New York, Chicago, or whatever, there are other markets where convenience store behavior is not a primary behavior. And we look at the context of the market where maybe in the Northeast, as an example, liquor stores dominate that behavior potentially, and you can really create customized messaging around the liquor store or the on-premise space, and it's really a reflection of the consumers where they're at and what types of message we think is most appropriate for that environment.
Yeah, and speaking about message and the creative side, and also the consumer preference for seeing things and not seeing advertising too.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are some considerations about creativity and also in terms of ad load or duration of ads,
Yeah.
and how do you think about those things?
Well, I really believe in, I guess, the buzzword, whether it's here or what I saw at Advertising Week last week, it's this idea of the attention economy, right? And we have to really refocus ourselves as marketers on this idea of attention. And I'm a believer that marketing is going to be in a difficult position today, even more so, where we're finding less and less opportunities to disrupt consumer behavior. And I think we need to be more refocused ourselves on reinforcing their behavior than disrupting their behavior, right? And so the traditional ways to do that, whether it's TV or otherwise, are really challenging for us because we know the consumer behavior is that they skip through that types of advertising. So I think that it's really critical for us to create messaging that consumers are seeking out, content they're seeking out, in environments that are most relevant to the brand. And just putting your ad and spraying it everywhere isn't necessarily the most effective form of marketing, I think, as it was maybe 10 years ago. And so we're constantly coming up with customized messaging to meet that environment, which I think helps stand out. And you see a lot of marketers do the same.